Hi there, I'm Andrew Brown. Welcome to Real-Time Music and Sound with Pure Data. In this video we're going to be looking at the live coding toolkit for Pure Data again. This is another in the series on the live coding toolkit. In order for you to follow on completely with this video, you'll need to download the live coding toolkit, which you can do from GitHub from this site here. When it's downloaded, make sure that you update Pure Data's paths. It's in the preferences for Pure Data. Make sure the path can see the folder that's got the abstractions that are part of the live coding toolkit. I'm also going to be using Hydra for graphics, and I've created this simple Hydra sketch which provides some sort of feedback that echoes the PD patch. Because the PD patch is showing in Hydra, it'll be a little bit distorted, but it should be quite readable. So thanks to Olivia Jack for creating Hydra. We're also communicating between PD and Hydra using Hydra MIDI, which is a script by Arno Schiff. And so in this video we're going to be looking at noise feedback as a kind of musical trope. In earlier parts of this series on the real-time music and sound with PD, I did a video on no input feedback mixer emulation using PD. So this technique of using feedback is similar to what's happening here in this video. There are going to be two delay lines used, two feedback cycles, and that was kind of an idea inspired by Philip David Stearns and his contribution to January 23. So thanks for that. Finally, with this long introduction, it's going to be at times a little bit noisy, particularly towards the end. So this is just a warning for making sure you've got some control over your volume for your speakers. Early on it will be quite nice and gentle, but it could get a little bit crazy, as feedback often does. Anyway, let's get going. You'll see that as my mouse moves around, you can see the PD work is being echoed with some feedback in the Hydra script, and this will become more elaborate as we get through the patch. So we're going to start with a noise patch, given that we're looking at noise feedback. I'm going to pass that through a low pass filter just to take the edge off it a bit. We're going to add a volume control for that noise. I'm then going to put it through a high pass filter and a second low pass filter. The reason for the second one will become clearer as we get sort of feedback loops happening. Then put it through the gain object in the live coding toolkit. The main reason for that is just the gain includes some clipping control, and then we'll send it to the out object of the live coding toolkit. The gain and the out are in stereo, so we'll just patch those things up there. And if we put a volume control in for our noise, then we should be able to hear that in a sec. I'm just going to make sure that we keep within the range of 0 to 1. So if we turn that up, so hopefully you can hear that we've got some noise low pass filtered running in the background. What I want is for that noise to increase and decrease over time. So I'm going to do that programmatically. I'm going to use a rand object from the live coding toolkit, pass that into a ramp also from the live coding toolkit, which will transition between the random values, and we're going to trigger that using a tempo object. So it's just a toggle goes into the tempo object. That's going to happen every half a second or so. I'm going to send that to a random number generator because I don't want it to happen sort of periodically. I want it to just happen from time to time. We're going to use a few outlets as we get this patch organized. But this one will go here, and then as we turn that on, you may now hear that we've got an undulating volume from time to time, so changes in the volume of our noise. The other thing I'm going to add is kind of an impulse signal. We're going to use a toggle to do that. I understand this is fairly crude, but nevertheless it will work for our purposes. So when that toggle is triggered, you'll hear an impulse in the audio stream. Part of the reason for that impulse is that it'll make the delay lines a little easier to hear once they come in. I'm going to turn my attention to Hydra and use these values that we've created for the noise and remap them for visuals. So we're going to use the map function from the live coding toolkit, and I'm going to map the values that are coming out of this random number into MIDI values from 0 to 127. I'm going to use a float here because I need to capture that data and trigger it a little bit later. We just want to see what that is, and then we're going to send that to a control out, MIDI control change out, number 1. So that map value will go into the float. And then I'm going to trigger that at the same time we've got our clicks, so those things are synchronized. So as that goes, you might notice that you get a sort of a bit of a jump in the, and sometimes a change in the hydrographics in the background there. Right, so time for some feedback as promised. So we're going to start with some delay lines. PD has objects for these. Just going to call this one delay and give it a maximum value of 1 second, 1000 milliseconds. So I'm going to feed our output into that delay line. In order to get this back, I'm going to use PD's catch object. I'm just going to give it a name of A for audio, just fairly simple. So I can just pass that into there, so the signals that are delayed will come back in a feedback loop. So we're going to create now some change to that delay. I'm going to use this structure again because we're going to randomly change a whole bunch of things, including in this case the delay time. So there's some values for that. So we're going to use the delay read object, and that's going to read from that delay line. And then we're going to have a volume control for the delay amount, and the output of that we will throw to our catch with the message A for audio. So we'll reuse this pattern of random things again to change the volume of that delay line. So that will go in there, and the values for that volume need to be adjusted like so. So now we can trigger the changes to that delay line, and use this other random outlet to change the level. And once that level goes up, then you should start to hear some sort of delays. Most prominently you'll hear them on the impulses. It'll be a bit subtle, but will come together. We can also use those delay line values to control some Hydra activity as well. You don't need the float in this case. So I'm going to map the values that are coming from the volume there
to MIDI values to send to Hydra. I'm going to invert them, start with 127, go down to 50, and in this case we will use the ramp, but this one we want to go to output number 2. So that's basically also doing some kind of delay, echoey kind of visual effect, visual feedback in the Hydra patch. Okay, so this is all very sort of calm and beach-like at the moment, so we need to add our second delay line, which is going to ramp up the craziness a little bit. So we're going to introduce the second delay line and call it feedback. It's only going to be 10 milliseconds maximum. It's going to be quite short. So we send that to there. And now we need to set up a structure in order to do that. So I'm going to again copy this pattern here and adjust the values. So we're going to be randomly adjusting the delay length for that feedback. And as before, we're going to read from that feedback buffer. Put that down there so we can see it clearly. And similarly, it needs to get some amplification, and the output needs to be thrown. So at the moment the volume of that is 0, which is fine. What we can do is set this up so that the random delay times start happening, but we won't hear anything until we turn those up. So let's get our trusty pattern here of randomly generating some values. It's going to go in there, and this has got to be in a range which is suitable for that, close to 1 but maybe not quite. Alright, so that is happening. I'm going to manually adjust this level of the feedback because it's going to have quite a dramatic effect. As I turn it up, you may start to hear some phasing going on now from that delay. As we get further up, it will become more feedback-like. Okay, like so. So I'm going to set that to automatically adjust itself. I will need to maybe keep an eye on the levels. And we can also there we go. We can also make these values go out to Hydra to change some other aspects of the graphics while we're at it. So I'll just set those up. And that's just still running, and it basically just takes care of itself. I could go and have a coffee now and just let it run if I was that way inclined, but I think at this stage we might just let that conclude.
And so there you have it. Noise feedback with some hydrographics. I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.